Welcome to Dare Yourself. I'm Natalie Kogan. I'm coming to you from my art studio, and we are here to talk about using change as your catalyst to grow into who you are truly capable of becoming, one dare at a time. I want to ask you something. Do you ever have this feeling like you're waiting to arrive? Like you're waiting to arrive at some stable state. Maybe it is in your life, right? And you feel like, okay, I'm gonna make these changes, do these things, and then things are going to feel settled. I'm going to figure it out and then I'll just be there for a while. Or maybe it's in your career where you're thinking, okay, I have these steps and these things, and then that's it. Like, that's going to be it. I spent a lot of my life chasing this feeling of like feeling done, stability. I have arrived. And what I have learned from building companies and losing companies and burning out at the top of what looked like amazing success, starting to paint at 40 after denying that to myself for most of my life. There is no arriving. There's no such thing. And that used to scare me so much. But to be honest, now it's the most liberating thing. And I want to share with you why. So here is the thing. The reason there is no arriving, right, no steady state, is that we are literally biologically built for constant growth and change. And I want to share this idea from a scientist that I came across a little bit ago that like completely blew my mind wide open on this and helped me understand what I'm sharing with you. So there's a biologist, his name is Michael Levin. He's at Tufts University. And he has this fascinating theory about aging, that we don't just age because our cells wear out, which is the theory, the main theory that we have on aging, but that we decline partly because we run out of new goals, new challenges, new things to organize ourselves around. And he cites evidence from these flatworms, right? This is fascinating, okay? These flatworms, they are biologically immortal. And the reason that they're immortal is that they keep giving themselves new challenges every few weeks. They literally, all right, this is a little gross, but it's mind-blowing. They literally every few weeks rip their body in half. So then they have to grow a new body, the second half of their body, which is the challenge, right? The goal. And they keep doing this, and that's how they stay alive. And when they stop, they start to decay. Think about this, like the implication for us humans, staying comfortable, staying without changing, it isn't safety. It's actually a really dangerous, slow form of decline, right? Okay, there's one more piece of research that I want to share with you on this. There's a scientist at UT Dallas. Her name is Denise Park, and she has spent her entire career studying the aging brain. And here's what she found. You know, I think you've probably heard, I've heard people talk about and studies around like we have to stay engaged, right? As we get older, we have to stay active and engaged. But what she found is that just staying engaged, right? Doing puzzles, reading, going for walks, hanging out with people, that isn't enough. What actually keeps the brain vital is doing things that are genuinely unfamiliar and challenging. She has this quote in one of the, I wrote it down, it was in one of the interviews where she said, when you're inside your comfort zone, you may be outside the enhancement zone, right? So like what her research and Michael Levin's research is suggesting is that we are wired to evolve, to challenge ourselves, to grow. And when we don't do that, we decline. And literally, we age and we die. All right. I don't mean to be dramatic, but that's what the research is suggesting. And here's the thing, you know, I don't need to tell you this, but we are living through a period of enormous change in every aspect of our lives, you know, geopolitical change and AI, right? Arguably, AI is the most disruptive technology that has ever existed. And there's this feeling that many people that I work with and the audiences I speak to have that somehow like they have to get through this change, like get through it, toughen up and figure out how to get through it. And then there's going to be solid ground on the other side, right? Like I just got to get through this. But here's the thing. In a way, there is no solid ground. The only solid ground is us gripping to how things are. And that, first of all, isn't possible because everything around us is changing. But also, as I shared, like it actually causes us to decay, right? In a way, the way to think about it, just like a tree, if you are not growing and expanding in new ways, you are wilting. There is no solid ground. There is no just steady state, right? We're either growing and evolving and setting new goals and doing new things, or we are literally wilting and decaying. And so the question isn't, how do I get through change? The question is, what is this change asking me to become next, right? We're always evolving. We're always growing. I hate this idea of a best self, right? Like sometimes we hear like, become your best self. There is no best self, just like there is no arriving. You're just evolving into what's next for you, right? And I find this really liberating and energizing, that there is no steady state to get to. There is no permanent state of arriving of this is how I am, and this is how my work is, and this is how my life is. That doesn't exist, right? And when you acknowledge that, when you recognize that, then we can shift instead of trying to get there, right? Trying to tolerate change or survive through change so we can get to this place of steadiness and permanence. If that doesn't exist, then it gives us an opportunity to embrace change as our catalyst to grow, to embrace change as something that this is how I flourish, right? Like this is good for me. And, you know, when I think back on my life, this is always true. And I'm just willing to bet this is true for you too, that the periods of greatest change were the ones that when I grew the most and I felt the most alive. They were definitely not easy. Okay. In a way, in the last couple of years, I've been going through a huge reinvention and change in my life in every aspect of my speaking, my focus of my thinking, my business, my life, embracing myself as an artist. Definitely has not been easy. All right. No one says, there's no research that I've shared with you that says challenge and change are easy. But all of the periods of change have always felt deeply alive and energizing. And the thing is, our brain craves safety of the familiar, right? That like your brain really wants to keep you safe. And that is why it prefers things that are familiar, right? Because things that are familiar, they are comfortable. Your brain knows there's no danger in them, right? So our brain does have this desire for safety. In fact, like often like that's the primary thing it's focused on. But here's the thing. Our brain has evolved this way because we used to live in a way like thousands and thousands of years ago where safety was scarce, right? When we lived in tribes and there was a lot of danger and animals and not enough food. So there was a lot of danger and safety was scarce. So our brains evolved to prioritize safety so we can stay alive, right? But we don't live that way anymore, right? And so what often happens is we kind of allow our brain to keep focusing on the safety, whereas it also has this other need, this other desire for growth, for us to have new challenges, for us to do new things, right? So that it can stay alive, so we can stay in a flourishing state. And so I want you to really consider this. And again, think about the study from Michael Levin and these flatworms. Again, it's like a little gross, but they literally rip themselves in half so that they can keep growing the rest of their body. And they do this every so often because that is how they stay alive. Consider this as an invitation, right? That when your brain is resisting change, it's leaning too far into this desire for safety, right? And you can literally remind yourself, you can be like, well, yes, The safety is important to the brain, but so is my growth. So is having new goals. So is doing new things. So is challenging myself. And you have the ability, right? I always say the greatest power you have is the power to choose your mindset. So when you're finding yourself resisting change or feeling this, like, I just got to get through this so I can arrive to the other side of safety and permanence, you have the ability to say, hey, actually embracing change, embracing growing, embracing doing something new, this is natural. This is who I am meant to be. This is what is helping me truly flourish. And so this is my dare for you this week. And this is what I want to leave you with. The next time that you feel that natural fear, the doubt, the discomfort of change and something shifting, don't immediately try to make it stop. Don't immediately try to escape it. Instead, ask yourself, how is this change or uncertainty, how is it inviting me to grow, to evolve, to challenge myself in new ways? Because that feeling that we feel like when there's a lot of change and we feel that discomfort, that like, oh, the doubt, it's not indicating that there's a problem, that there's something wrong. It's actually, you can think of it as your invitation, right? And you get to choose whether you answer it or not. Like, this is where the power comes in of choosing your mindset. You get to choose how you react to the fear you feel, to the resistance that you feel when you experience change, right? You can go with it. You can allow your brain to just focus on safety. You can resist the change. You can go into the fear, or you can embrace that other part of your brain and activate that part of your brain that loves a new challenge, that loves for you to grow, that flourishes when you do. And that's your dare. When you notice yourself feeling that fear and the doubt, don't immediately try to escape it, but see it as invitation and ask yourself, how is this change? How is this uncertainty? How are things changing, inviting me to grow and evolve? That's all I have for you today. As always, I love hearing from you. Shoot me an email to natalie@happier.com. Let me know how this resonates, if you've done your dare. And if you heard something in this episode that you think someone in your life will appreciate, please share this episode with them. I will appreciate you doing that. Have an awesome rest of your week, awesome humans, and I will see you on the next episode of Dare Yourself.